Aren't you a little old to be here?
She needs modification.
No walk-ins. Appointment only.
This woman is about to die.
Well, you should have started with that.
Oh, hello once again, Bucketheads. Mavar Tigar. Welcome to the 125th Bounty Hunter recruiting episode of Mando Vision. Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to reach out to us is, of course, via social media. We are at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. And make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. How the heck are we doing, Bucketheads? Happy Boba Fett Wednesday. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this podcast, you have watched, possibly rewatched, digested the latest chapter in the Book of Boba Fett. And we are here to discuss. And one of the things I'm very happy about with this week's episode is I don't have to start off upset and emotionally volatile as I did last week's Boba Fett show. Because luckily, this episode seems to have it was a salve, I guess, for the burned, hurt feelings of so many other watchers of the series. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of haters on the show still. But they were quieter than they were last week for sure. And I always like that very, very much because, again, this is a show about positivity in Star Wars fandom. We are trying to be the bigger person, if you will. You know, it's okay to be critical and to not like certain elements of the Star Wars that you're seeing, but let's talk about it rationally, maturely, and you know, as friends should, right? You know, not attacking each other and calling the creators of the show names and coming after them on social media. That's all gross, and we don't do that here. We don't support that. We don't condone that, and that's not what it's about. So yes, I'm excited because this episode, again, I enjoyed last week's episode just fine. Are there things that I didn't like about it? Of course there were. We talked about them. I shared some of my feelings on them. By and large, still liking the show. Still loving the show, honestly. Still loving the show. I'm still getting a Boba Fett television series, which if you told me even 2 years ago that I was going to get a Boba Fett show, I don't think I would have believed you. I don't think I would have thought it was possible. But now we live in a world where anything is possible. And isn't that nice? So yeah, let's be excited, you know? Again, we can comment and critique the Star Wars that we get nowadays, but we just have to do it in an appropriate fashion. We don't have to be jerks about it. And I guess that's all I'm really trying to say. So let's talk about it. Today's chapter 4, The Gathering Storm, which if you're a fan of the Expanse novels, you might recognize that as the name of a ship from the Expanse series. The original air date for this chapter today, January 19th, 2022. Our plot, it's a heavy one, so sit down, hold on, okay, as I read this. Boba Fett partners with Fenik. Brief and to the point. This episode is directed by Kevin Tanchirowen. I hope I said your name correctly, sir. He's done a lot of television work. He did some episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think he did the 2009 Fame movie. There's a Mortal Kombat short in there as well. So he's got some chops. I think he did some episodes of Hellstrom on the Hulu, if you're a fan of that stuff. And so yeah, but this is his first entry into Star Wars, so we support that, right? Like, more directors doing Star Wars means more episodes of Star Wars shows, so that's okay. Our main cast this week, once again, Tamora Morrison is Boba Fett, Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand, Matt Berry is 88, Carrie Jones is Black Chrysanthemum, Jennifer Beals is Garza Flip, Marlon Aquino is the Twi'lek server. This just goes on and on. The characters you aren't in there. Phil Lamar, the great Phil Lamar, is the Klatooinian boss. We got Frank Gregg and Colin Hyams back as the Gamorrean guards. Matthew Wood as Bib Fortuna, and that's only like a briefest of cameo flashbacks. So I'm not even sure how Matthew Wood got full credit for that. But hey, whatever. Matthew Wood's a good guy. We like Matthew Wood, so let's give him credit where credit's due, I guess. And then the cameo towards the beginning of the episode, where I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to know who this is, but I didn't. So when I saw his name in the credits at the end of the episode, I did have to do a little bit of a Google dive into just exactly who is Stephen Thundercat Bruner. And apparently he is quite the accomplished bass player. He's played with such music superstars as Kendrick Lamar, let's see, Childish Gambino, so many others. And apparently he's a Grammy award-winning bassist on his own as a solo artist too. So yeah, that's quite accomplished. And I wonder if that's actually maybe some of his slapping the bass that we hear in the modification parlor. I didn't get to check that part out. I meant to follow up on that and I didn't. But I think it's a fair assumption that maybe he contributed in some way to that musical score that was playing. So yeah, there we go. There's our main cast, and I think it's probably that time to really get into the episode proper. But before we do that, I do have one quick announcement. And I just want you to be prepared. There is a possibility that next week's Book of Boba Fett episode will not be out until Thursday. I don't know for sure, but I wanted to put it out there just in case anyone was like, it's like 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, and you're like, where the heck is it? It might be late. I'm still trying to get my head around that one or not. There's a few things going on. I've got a few things to juggle, a few plates to spin. But we'll see what we can happen. But at the very latest, Thursday. All right? All right, so you know what we're going to do now. It is the quintessential moment for this podcast. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Who are you?
I am Boba Fett.
Boba is dead.
I was left for dead on the sands of Tatooine. Like you.
So once again, this episode picks up with Boba in the back to tank and flashing back to fill in those gaps between Return of the Jedi and his return in The Mandalorian. And now we are much more, we're doing a lot more catching up to the current timeline, I should say. But I still have questions about this timeline. And I guess the thing I need to that I would like clarification on, but I'm not sure if we will get, and perhaps you wonderful listeners may have more insight into this than me, and by all means, please share. But I guess where I'm sort of stuck, we've talked about how in The Mandalorian it's roughly 5 years post Return of the Jedi, right? That seems to be the consensus. I've not come across any material suggesting otherwise to this point. And again, if you all know something I don't, please share. I would love correct me. I'm A-okay with this, because this makes me ask the question. Well, how long was Boba in the Sarlacc? I assume he couldn't have been in there for too long. That those digestive acids, they were doing some damage, so he must have been in there for a bit. But I mean, are we talking weeks, months, years? Not sure. I mean, again, slowly digested over the course of 1,000 years. So Boba being in the Sarlacc Pit for quite a length of time is 100% possible. I guess I just would like a little bit more information on How long was he in there? How long did he spend with the Tuscans? Because that's the next part of the question. If he gets out of the Sarlacc fairly early on, how much time does he spend with the Tuscan Raiders? And you know, I think it makes a bit more sense, narratively speaking, if he spends more time amongst the Tuscans, because then we sort of understand his guilt over what happens in the last week's episode. You know, he's trying to help them, and he ends up getting them killed. And it's yeah, I guess those are like the main questions I want to kind of figure out. Kind of like I'd like to have this timeline a little bit more clearly defined, so I know like, oh, Boba Fett spent 3 years living amongst the Tuscans. Oh, or Boba Fett spent 4 years. I was like, whoa, all right. So like, it also helps you kind of underline and underscore that sense of loss and that sense of guilt that he feels for the way he views it as getting them killed. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that. I would like to have a little bit of a more clarity. But Star Wars timelines have always been nebulous and vague, and they do that sort of intentionally. You know, we can look at that more clearly with with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, you know, it's been almost 20 years since Revenge of the Sith, and you know, that's sort of like the timeline, right, that we're talking about with Luke. You know, from Attack of the Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope, right? About 20-ish years in between, and he goes from looking like Ewan McGregor to looking like Alec Guinness. Those twin sons of Tatooine must just be harsh. That's all I can say for sure. So yeah, the timelines are a bit nebulous, a bit rolling, a bit loosey goosey. But what can you do? What are you gonna do? It's the way it has to be. So yeah, I guess that's sort of my little. I don't know, and I guess I'm just a fan of timelines. I sort of like knowing the order of operations in which things fell. But this episode again catches us up to the current timeline. We meet up with Boba riding his loyal bantha across the Dune Sea, sort of wandering aimlessly. When one night, after you know, eating some grub and feeding his bantha, Boba sees flares in the sky that catches attention. So he goes to investigate and comes across the body of Fennec Shand, catching us up to season 1 of The Mandalorian, chapter 5. We sort of knew this moment was coming, but now we get to see exactly what had to be done to save Fennec Shand's life. Boba throws her on the back of the bantha and takes her to the mod parlor on the outskirts of Mos Eisley, where he throws down some coin, the coin he got from the Pyke Syndicate, I believe. Or, wait, did he? Is that from the Pyke Syndicate? He just had some coin on him. He got some money somewhere. Maybe he pilfered it from the biker gang. I can't remember now. I can't remember it must be from the Pikes, right? Because they looted that train. Anyways, he had some money. He pays Thundercat to do the mods, to do the repairs on a dying Fennec Shand, and saves her life. She wakes up in the desert, where we pick up with the conversation that they were just having. One of the interesting nuggets from this conversation that I'm not sure enough people are focusing on yet, that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, is right here. I'm going to play it for you right now. This just picks up where we hit pause on the recording. So check this out.
I was rescued by the Sand People. They took me in, treated me as one of their own. I tried to help them. Instead, I got the massacred by Nikto's speed bikers.
Speed bikers defeated Tuscans? That's highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. I like this very, very much, because I think this is something we talked about last week. It seemed unusual that the Tuscans would be defeated so easily by this biker gang. And now we have to ask ourselves the question, were the Pikes involved? Was Fennec Shand involved? I mean, she's a gun for hire. Let's not rule it out. Now, I would assume she would have had to have been part of a posse if she was involved. But this puts a little bit more doubt in our minds, because we also talked about Fennec's loyalty to Boba Fett, because we had questions as he was being choked out by Black Chrysanthemum last week. Like, where was Fennec Shand? She doesn't show up until the very, very end. You know, you would think she'd be a little bit more on hand, a little bit more tighter on security at the palace. Black Chrysanthemum just sort of wanders in there and kills him. So, again, we sort of have to ask the question, is Fennec double dealing a little bit? Is she working for the Pyke Syndicate? Is she working for one of the other families on Tatooine? I think these things need to be asked, but I also think it's very, very, very probable that these are red herrings designed to get like sort of like internet conspiracy theories started on this very, very topic. But I think it bears talking about, bears a discussion, and keep it in the back of your brain. Like, how do you feel about it? Is Fenik's loyalty to Boba Fett rock solid, or should you not ever trust a gun for hire, because ultimately they're out for themselves and for their profit? And you know, at the very beginning here, it seems very much that Fenik's only going to come along to help Boba Fett recover his ship, and then it'd be all good. But Boba Fett also sort of lays out his plan for the future. Does Fenik really buy into it? She seems to have some questions about it, but later on in the episode, she decides to go along for the ride. So has she been persuaded? Don't know. Or is she in the pocket of somebody else still, and she's going to braid this out, and then eventually, when the time is right and the money is right, she turns on him, betrays him, stabs him in the back. We will wait and see. But one of my favorite elements of this episode is Ming-Na Wen crushing it as Fennec Shand, really getting a lot more to do in this one than she has had in prior chapters. So I'm a big fan of that. And I liked seeing the beginning of this relationship. I also liked how they sort of underscored the fact that when we see them in The Mandalorian, especially in season 2, with the tragedy episode, it's not so much that she's indebted to Boba Fett anymore. Like, yes, that's how it started, but it has progressed, and they are, at that time at least, equals. So, like I said, maybe there's a turn coming, but as far as like the debt is concerned, by the middle of this episode, the debt is considered paid, and she's just now rolling with Boba Fett and seeing how this is all going to play out. So that's very interesting and very, very exciting. The last thing I want to talk about before I move on from this section of the episode is the mod parlor. You know, we didn't spend too much time talking about the mod gang from last week. You know, obviously we addressed them; they're a big part of the episode. But I'm sort of curious, like, what kind of kid wants to do that to their bodies? And you know, I guess if you're into the like cyberpunk stuff and cyberpunk novels, maybe that makes a bit more sense to you. But the thing I sort of wondered, and the thing I sort of questioned about it was like, how do the desert kids from Tatooine have this kind of cash laying around? They can just put cybernetic implants all over their bodies. You know, maybe they're dealing spice. Maybe there's something going on more nefarious. You know, but this is like, you know, a lot of the material that we've read about life on Tatooine is that it's harsh and it's hard, and there's not a lot of money to be made. There's not a lot of profit to be made necessarily. But what do I know? I mean, there's so many avenues of life on Tatooine that we haven't yet explored. I mean, maybe they're kids of more crime lords. Maybe they're, you know, I don't know. I mean, some banking clan thing or something. Who knows? I guess there's an answer for all of it. It just sort of is a curious thing. And again, it's a weird choice, cybernetic modifications. But I guess why not, right? Why not? I don't know what kids are into nowadays. I still don't have a sufficient answer for why TikTok's popular. So, you know, I'm clearly out of touch with the kids of Earth and the kids of Tatooine, which is not surprising in the least. So Boba recruits Fennec to his cause, and it's time to go to Jabba's palace and try to recover what he has now coined his fire spray gunship, because apparently we do not say Slave One anymore. It is a canceled name, basically. And listen, I understand the negative connotations. I understand. I'll just leave it at that. But I don't think calling it my fire spray gunship is the best idea. It does need to have a name. We need to figure that out. They need to workshop that and decide fairly. Like, they probably should have decided months ago, honestly. But yeah, Boba Fett just can't go walking around like, oh, let's go to my fire spray gunship from here on out. That would be annoying. So this is actually the second time we're seeing Boba Fett scoping out Jabba's palace. We do see him at the beginning of the episode taking a look, seeing how many guards there are, seeing if he can get in, get the ship formerly known as Slave One out of there, and he walks away. Now that's the other part of the timeline that I guess we sort of have to wonder about. After leaving, after doing the funeral pyre for the fallen Tusken tribe, has Boba Fett spent years wandering the Dune Seas with his bantha? I guess that's another question we have to ask. Is like, did he spend a year or two or more roaming the Dune Seas as a lone figure on a bantha? I guess we have to ask that question. Like, is this not the first time he's gone to Jabba's palace? And that's at the beginning of the episode. Now he goes back with Fennec Shand, and she has some technology with all of her fancy gear, and they're going to be able to scope out where the guards are, how to access, where the tunnels are, the whole shebang. They're going to be able to form a strategy. But this gives us another moment for Boba and Fennec to chit chat by a campsite fire, because what a great time to share your feelings with the person who you just saved by modifying their entire abdomen. And that's what happens here. So let's go ahead and check out this sequence here. I'm going to interrupt at a certain point because I have a question, and I do want to ask it to the wonderful audience and see if we can formulate an answer together. Okay, here we go.
What's next for you?
I'm gonna find my armor. And I'm gonna kill that bloated pig who double-crossed me.
Okay. Obviously, the bloated double pig, Bib Fortuna. I have questions about the double cross. I'm curious if it's related to the events of the War of the Bounty Hunters comic book series that recently came out, where Bib Fortuna was a part of putting a bounty on Boba Fett for losing Han Solo's carbonite frozen body. But is that the double cross to which he is referring to, or is there another event that we aren't privy to? Is there something that went on maybe behind the scenes in Jabba's palace during the events of Return of the Jedi that we aren't privy to? I'd like to know a little bit more about this double cross. If there's anything else in the fandom out there, if there's something from a book or a series that I'm not aware of, again, please reach out and let me know. I'd love to know a little bit more about this double cross that apparently Bib Fortuna perpetrated against Boba Fett. Let me know more. All right, so let's get back to the scene with the campfire. Boba Fett's laying out his plan and his motivation for said plan. These are the things we did sort of wonder about. We sort of speculated on early in the show's run, and now we're starting to get some concrete answers. So let's check it out.
Take his throne.
You want to head a Gatra.
Why not?
You're a hunter.
I'm tired of working for idiots who are gonna get me killed.
Hold on. I paused it right there because I did want to mention also that is a sentiment we have heard in Star Wars: The Clone Wars from Cad Bane. So Boba Fett feels that as well. Cad Bane, a bounty hunter who's been around for a while at that point during the Clone Wars. Boba Fett has obviously reached that point with bounty hunting. It is a career for those who maybe don't intend to live a long life. And I think Fennec is going to say something along those lines too, that, you don't just get to ride away into the sunset. So Boba Fett's like, well, why not change the game? Why not elevate my status? Why not flip the script and be the one who puts bounties on other people? So let's hear his motivation as he gets into it right now.
The Tuscans took me in. Made me part of their tribe. I was ready to leave hunting behind.
People like us don't get to decide when we're finished.
There we go. All right. So, again, we finally get a little bit more clarity on why Boba's doing what he's doing. And, again, he's kind of sticking to what he knows, but why not be the guy, why not be the shot caller, the signal caller, and be the one who makes things happen and maybe flips the script on some of these criminal empires. It's sort of at this point that again, if I hadn't, we haven't talked about it, maybe in any depth, but I know, months ago when we were looking forward to the show, when we were still waiting with bated breath for the first trailers, we openly speculated on this podcast that, how much I was looking forward to sort of a deep dive into the Star Wars criminal underworld. And we really haven't gotten that with this series. And while I am a little disappointed in that, I honestly, looking at what I'm getting, I can't say I'm too surprised, because it's still in the same vein as The Mandalorian, right? It's good, simple storytelling, that Western motif still intact, with an infusion of Japanese influences, Asian culture influences, and so yes, we're getting, I think, what we are supposed to be getting. I think my expectations for maybe what the show could have been were maybe a tad too high for what they were going to do over the course of a 7-episode season. And again, I've accepted that, and I'm hoping that by the end of this run that a lot of fans who are still sort of railing against the show will begin to appreciate what they were seeing and what they got. It also reminded me that a lot of the times during the Mandalorian's run, there were people plenty critical of those episodes in both in season 1 and in season 2, about how a lot of those early episodes, they felt like side quests. They felt like Din Djarin has an obstacle to overcome, and now he's going to do a job so he can get money for the ship or blah blah blah. And it was sort of attacked for that. But by the season finale of season 1 and by the season finale of season 2, most of us were at season 1 we were screaming in elation at the reveal of Moff Gideon having the Darksaber. At the end of season 2, we were sobbing our faces off at the return of Luke Skywalker. I urge patience. We still have 5, 6, and 7 to go, 3 episodes, to kind of see if this show's going to land in the way that we want it to. And while I don't think it's going to have the heavy emotional impact as the story of a father and son, like the way The Mandalorian did, I still think there's plenty of time to get an emotionally satisfying conclusion out of the show. Let's see it where we go. Let's see what happens. There's still a lot to unravel. Now, as we prepare to transition into the next section of the episode, which is Fenik and Boba Fett infiltrating Jabba's palace to recover his fire spray gunship. Gotta get a name. Gotta workshop that, bud. Gotta workshop it. Fenik and Boba Fett then infiltrate Jabba's palace after looking at a detailed holo schematic of the place that they've acquired through one of Fennec's small little droids that fits in the butt of her rifle, because that's pretty awesome. And then we infiltrate through the kitchen. There's an EV-99 unit in there. We got a chef droid that we saw, I think, from Attack of the Clones, who goes all General Grievous on Boba Fett before getting his head sliced off by Fennec Shand. A funny-ish sort of moment with Boba Fett pursuing the small little droid that comes in there to catch the rat. But we've seen that droid before, too, in episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars. But nice to see them in a live-action series. I actually really did enjoy the part where it just turns itself off rather than be deactivated permanently from Boba Fett. And that amused me, I will admit. And then we get the good action sequence as they storm the hangar to take his fire spray gunship out and get it out of the hangar. Obviously, the plan gets more complicated. The guards come rushing in. It's a big shootout. The ship's sort of stuck. He can't turn in and use the weapons. But Fennec Shan's on the way. Fennec Shan saves the day. And they make their escape with his fire spray gunship. And it's really cool to see that ship kind of taking off from Jabba's palace and flying across the desert of Tatooine. I thought it was a really nice visual, the way it looked. It looked really, really cool. And the sounds of that ship are so distinct and iconic at this point that it was really, really nice. And then once on board the ship, Fennec and Boba have a little catch-up session, and we find out what Fennec wants for now.
Now your debt is paid. Where would you like to be dropped?
Where are you headed?
I have a few scores to settle.
I'll go for the ride.
So first up on the payback list is the Kintan Striders, the swoop gang that he believes killed the Tusken Raiders, but I think there's good reason to doubt that is actually the case, and that the Kintan Striders were actually framed for the murder of the Tusken Raiders. But we'll see if that bears fruit in the final 3 episodes or not. And then it's off to the Sarlacc Pit, where Boba Fett will attempt to... Well, it's sort of... it was a little interesting when they got to the Sarlacc Pit, I'm not going to lie. Because I wonder, is he just going to blow up the Sarlacc Pit for, him falling into it? And he's just mad about it still? And we sort of wondered... And I sort of wondered, I should say, back in the first episode, in the first chapter of the Book of Boba Fett, when Boba escapes and crawls his way. He uses the flamethrower to escape the gullet of the Sarlacc and then claws his way up through the sand. And I had sort of wondered if he killed the Sarlacc in that process, because I would have thought like the tendrils would have been flailing around trying to recover its lost meal. Perhaps it was too busy trying to repair and heal itself from the damage that Boba Fett inflicted on it. Because I wasn't sure if they were just looking into the maw of a dead Sarlacc, or if it was going to come to life. And so, of course, it comes to life, and it does in fact confirm what we also speculated and wondered about: which version of the Sarlacc was this? Was this, the old school Sarlacc, the old unaltered Sarlacc, or is this the special edition Sarlacc? It is, of course, the special edition Sarlacc with that giant beak that protruded out as it comes and clings on and attacks, trying to break into the transperial dome of his fire spray gunship to once again reclaim Boba Fett as its delicious, delicious prize. He's like a Turkish delight. He's so gosh darn tasty that the Sarlacc can't go on without him. But instead, we get to see a struggle, because what Boba Fett's actually doing is he's trying to peer down in there to find his armor, which again is a little confusing, because again our flashback sequences are framed from Boba Fett's point of view, from his memories, from his perspective. Now I get it; he's unconscious in Chapter 1 when we sort of see him burst out of the Sarlacc Pit. But what we see as the audience is him getting rolled by Jawas and then pilfering his armor. So if we're seeing that through his memories, why does he think that he left his armor in the Sarlacc? It's a little confusing. It's a little strange. It's one of the problems that you have when you're trying to tell a flashback from one character's certain point of view, as we Star Wars fans all know. But so it's, again, I guess I'll just say it's confusing, because as the audience, we know he got rolled by Jawas. So him, trying to use his fire spray gunship to peer down into the black maw of the Sarlacc Pit, the great pit of Carcoon. We're like, you're wasting your time, bro. The Jawas rolled you. They took it. It's gone. It's on Cobb Vanth. Cobb Vanth's wearing it right now in Mos Pelgo, and boo to you. But instead I like the sequence very much with the Sarlacc and the fire spray locked in battle with each other, and Fenik ultimately releasing a seismic charge that will roll off the ship into the Great Pit of Carcoon and ultimately kill the Sarlacc. Again, maybe another little bit dose of payback from Boba Fett for trying to slowly digest him over the course of 1,000 years. And now the Sarlacc is definitely dead, right? I don't think the Sarlacc's going to shake that one off. That's way better, way worse than a flamethrower through one of your abdomen walls. Not that the abdomen wall thing sounds much fun either, but yeah. So there we have it, and we sort of get to I don't know. It is kind of exciting to see the death of the Sarlacc, I suppose. And then we get one more little chit chat, fireside conversation between Fennec Shand and Boba Fett.
Are you serious about farming your own house?
How many times have you been hired to do a job that was avoidable? If they only took the time to think. How much money could have been made? How many lives could have been saved?
Then you and I would be out of work.
I'm tired of our kind dying because of the idiocy of others. We're smarter than them. It's time we took our shot.
We?
Yes.
And here's when Boba makes his pitch and tries to lure Fennec to his side by offering something that he's been talking about since the first chapter.
If I'm going to start a house, I need brains and muscle. You have both.
It's tempting. But I'm an independent contractor. I'll do jobs for you, but I value my freedom.
I can offer you something no client ever has.
What's that?
Loyalty. I will cut you in on the success and pledge my life to protect yours.
So Fennec's response to this offer is amusing, but it also, again, it could be foreshadowing of her betrayal, because she thinks that she can take advantage and take out Boba Fett when the time is right for her. Or again, this could be another red herring even just in an effort to persuade Boba Fett that this plan is not very good. So I am again. We got 3 chapters to see what happens between these two. But let's go ahead and hear that response right now, and finish out the flashback.
Living with the Tuscans has made you soft.
No. It's made me strong. You can only get so far without a tribe.
So this is the moment right here where the Boba Fett from our memories, from our imaginations, kind of ends. No more the lone bounty hunter, on the frontier, living by his own code. This is him starting a house, starting by extension a tribe and a family, and living for others, vowing himself to others, and taking others into his responsibility, into his care. It's an interesting dynamic shift. And again, we saw something familiar. If you're an old school fan like I am, we saw a similar shift happen to Boba Fett. Eventually, it took a lot longer to get to this point for him in the expanded universe, but eventually he's wooed back to the Mandalorians, and takes up their cause to help restore Mandalore. But it takes a long time for him to be persuaded. I sort of like the impetus that his near-death experience here with the Sarlacc, his salvation at the hands of the Tusken Raiders, that these things had a dramatic effect on his mentality and his perspective of life in the galaxy. Again, he's still sticking with what he knows, a life in the criminal underworld of the galaxy, but one that sort of lives a bit more to his own personal code and to what he learned from his time with the Tuskens themselves. So this brings our flashbacks to a conclusion as Boba Fett comes out of the bacta tank this last time. He is told by the droid that he has completed his final bacta treatment, and he is now fully recovered from the injuries that he has sustained from the Sarlacc and from various attacks and beatings that we've seen him suffer throughout the first 3 chapters of the show. And this would also seem to indicate the end of the flashbacks, because if he's not in the bacta chamber, right, he's not going to be dreaming unless we transition to him sleeping and flashing back, which would be kind of funny, because I feel like a lot of people have talked about, this is the end of the flashbacks now because he's not going to be in the bacta chamber anymore. This also ends our sort of what we sort of speculated on last week, that there may be, actually I think we've been speculating on it for longer than that, probably for the duration of the series, that maybe he was in the tank for unknown reasons. Maybe there was more going on with Boba Fett's health than we were being led to believe. That is clearly not the case, at least not at this point, and so we put that conspiracy theory to bed as well with that. All right, so now we're going to catch up and talk about what's going on in the present day. And yeah, we're going to catch up with a big Wookiee in a bar causing a lot of trouble. So yes, we catch up to the Book of Boba Fett's favorite new comic book crossover character, Black Chrysanthemum, as he's sitting in Sanctuary and getting drunk and getting angry as he's watching a group of Trandoshans profit off of gambling, and they're having a revelrous, joyous, obnoxious good time. And it's really, really pissing off Black Chrysanthemum. And I'm sure we all know, just in case anyone out there is new, the Trandoshans and the Wookiees, massive enemies, deep history. The Trandoshans would invade Kashyyyk and abduct Wookiees and sell them into slavery. In the old canon, they did this to profit to the Empire. I think a lot of that has crossed over into the new canon as well. But regardless, that sort of blood feud between the two species exists in the new canon, regardless of some of the finer details. So seeing those Trandoshans having such a great time really just pisses off Chrysanthemum, and so he does what Wookiees do best, despite the sort of calming efforts made by sort of appealing to his vanity, right? Like he's getting all the information, he's getting soothed, right? They're talking him down Hulk style, And the sun's setting, big guy. That's what Garza Flip's doing, basically, to Black Chrysanthemum, trying to appeal to his vanity, trying to appeal to him a little bit, to like, hey, let's not shed blood in my bar. And he doesn't kill the Trandoshan. He does, however, do what Wookiees are known for doing, which is pulling an arm out of a socket. Maybe it'll grow back. It's a Trandoshan. There's conflicting information about that right now, and it set fandom on fire a few months ago. So let's see what happens in this poor Trandoshan's case, or if we're just going to see a one-armed Trandoshan running around in Mos Espa for a little while. Though it doesn't go back quickly, so let's put it that way. But it's out on the streets here, and Boba Fett witnesses this exchange between Chrysanthemum and Garza Flip, and the poor Trandoshan. And he tracks down Chrysanthemum on the street and has an offer to make.
Hey, mate. Looks like you could use a job.
All right, so not much going on there, but yeah, Chrysanthemum now in the employ of Boba Fett. My question to this, my thought process on this is, I definitely 100% believe this could have been handled in last week's episode. Instead of just setting Chrysanthemum free, but like, hey, bub, want to come work for me right now on the spot? You don't have to go run through the desert. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was Boba Fett's kind of penance for Chrysanthemum. It was like, hey, go run through the desert, do a couple laps, and I'll catch up with you later. I definitely 100% think that Jon Favreau was like, I want to have a scene with Black Chrysanthemum in the Sanctuary Bar where he rips off the arm of a Trandoshan. And I'm okay with that. I just, like I said, you could have skipped a step, but again, I think Favreau really wanted this scene to exist. Maybe Robert Rodriguez really wanted this scene to exist. Regardless, we got this scene, and it's still a fun scene. But you could have saved some time if they wanted to. And now it's time to go back to Jabba's palace as we prepare for the sort of meeting of the families that control Mos Espa, that control Tatooine. We have the Trandoshan family, the Aqualish family, and the Klatooinian families meeting with Boba Fett as he sort of tries to appeal to them to stand with him. But if they won't stand with him, he wants to make sure that they won't stand against him. They won't rally with the Pykes. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting scene. It sort of plays out the way we thought it would. You know, Boba Fett doesn't trust them, and they probably don't trust him, or they think he's a fool for this whole loyalty ploy of his. And they'll wait and see if the Pykes kill him, and they'll just start doing business with the Pykes. That's sort of what the gist of this is for these families, right? They don't want to sacrifice profit in order to support Boba Fett or the Pykes. Like they want to, whatever's gonna be the situation, they still want to make sure they're getting their piece of it. What I think they're not realizing is that the Pykes are probably going to cut them out, and maybe it'll be another episode or two before they figure that out. But I could see the Pykes attempting to take over all of Tatooine, take over the entire spice trade on the planet, and cut these families out before they try to cut their own throats. And maybe they'll side with Boba Fett, maybe they'll side on their own, maybe they go to war, maybe the Pykes wipe them out first. There's a lot of scenarios that could play out here. But the one scene I do really like is that this dining room table is stationed over the Rancor pit. And so our new Rancor makes its presence known at a certain point when one of the family members is getting a little uppity with Boba, and the claws come through the table, and Boba, since he's bonded with the creature, gives it a down boy and throws it some food. Gives it a nice tomahawk steak through the grates. And yeah, I like that element of it too. No Danny Trejo in this one as the Rancor keeper, but what can you do about that?
As I'm sure you all know, the Pyke Syndicate are mustering troops in Mos Espa. They have slowly absorbed our planet as part of their spice trade. They have bribed the mayor and are draining Tatooine of its wealth.
We make many credits from the sale of spice in our territories.
Why do you deserve to be the daimyo? What prevents us all from killing you and taking what we want?
Easy, boy. Easy.
There's that sweet tomahawk steak for him. Oh, yeah. There's a rancor in that pit. Boba Fett's got some teeth, literally, on his side. Not that Black Sand doesn't have a fierce set of choppers as well, but that rancor, that's as good as having a crown right there, isn't it? King the man. So let's go ahead and listen to the last part of Boba's proposal to the families. Here we go.
I speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich.
Master Gartholoquox asks what it is that you are proposing.
I am proposing that all the families of Mos Espa join in a defensive alliance until the Pyke Syndicate is vanquished.
They have only challenged your territory. Why should we spill the blood of our ranks for a feud waged between you and the Pikes?
Yes. Then I will fight these battles alone. I will vanquish these interlopers who threaten our planet. I will make the streets safe again, so all in this room can prosper. All I ask in return is that you remain neutral if the Pyke Syndicate approaches you to betray me.
Spoilers, they all agree, at least to Boba Fett's face. The interesting line I found there was Boba Fett's claim to make the streets safe. Now, I think Boba Fett believes that. I'm not sure if these other families are all that interested in maintaining the streets, the safety of the streets for the average citizens of Mos Espa. But again, we haven't really gotten into those kind of nitty gritty details as far as how these syndicates run their operations and their sort of view of the day-to-day lives of the Mos Espa citizens. So I don't want to parse too much into that one. But yes, eventually our hero gets the agreement that he's looking for, that they'll at the very least, remain neutral. But how can you trust the word of a bunch of guys who run crime families? I mean, you can't, can you? And now for our closing moments of the show, let's turn it back over once again to Fenik and Boba Fett as they realize they can't trust these fools.
Do you trust them?
I trust them to work in their own self-interest. My deal is a lot better than what the Syndicate would offer. They may be stubborn, but they are not foolish enough to see that the Pikes would eventually take over the whole planet. Either way, we must prepare for war.
Oh, yes.
How much treasure do we have in reserve?
I have plenty of credits. What I'm short on is muscle.
Credits can buy muscle, if you know where to look.
And the haunting, yet oh so familiar, music of Din Djarin fills the room. What a delight. What a tease. Are we getting Din Djarin? Are they teasing us a little bit? Are we getting other Mandalorians for hire? Who's to say? But we got 3 episodes to go. We seem to be firmly now entrenched in the Syndicate war that's coming our way between Boba Fett's new house, the Pyke Syndicates. We'll see if the Aqualish, the Trandoshans, or the Klatooinians get involved on either side, for or against Boba. Again, there's a lot at stake at this point. There's a lot of questions we have to get answered, and we have to wait and see what's going to happen. We got 3 more chapters to go, and listen, it's going to be a wild, wild ride, I think, especially now that we're firmly entrenched in this. I love the flashbacks, do not mistake me, but now that we are sort of in this present timeline, I think the story is going to step up a notch or two in its pacing and its action sequences as well. We'll hopefully get to see Boba do some serious damage, lay the smackdown on some Pyke butts, and that would be a great joyous occasion for us all, right? Because I'm getting a little sick of the argument that Boba Fett's not whooping enough butt, and people posting videos of all the stormtrooper butt he kicked in season 2 of The Mandalorian and how he's getting tossed around by an 8-foot-tall Wookiee. Listen, stormtroopers are, not that they're not fierce in their own right, but an 8-foot-tall Wookiee I mean, that's some serious mojo right there that you gotta work against to make that one happen. So that's what's going on there. I dug this episode. I liked it a lot. They spent a little bit. I think they spent a little bit too much time in the flashbacks, but that's okay. By and large, the episode works in so many ways for me, at the very, very least. But I'm not the harshest critic of this show. Like I said, I have my quibbles. I have my nits to pick, and I've shared them all with you. I don't know how you all feel. If I'm being just a nitpicky son of a gun, or if I'm valid at all. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're getting the Book of Boba Fett. We're getting Boba Fett. We're getting Star Wars, and by and large, that is what makes me the happiest. But again, let's have a discussion. Let's have a chat. Let's break it down. What did you all like about this one? What didn't you like? What did you think of Fenik? Do you think she's going to betray Boba? I mean, where are we all headed with this? And what do you think's happening? I still suspect it's a red herring, but the clues are there for the betrayal of Fennec Shand against Boba Fett. We will see. We will see what happens. What are there more characters to debut in the series? We get some more characters from other elements of the lore to pop up in the series. Are there familiar faces? I mean, are there more members of the Max Rebo band still alive? I hope so. Anyways, yeah, I dig this one. I don't know if I can rank it in buckets per se. It's still a little fresh. I mean, I'm going to click it around I think I'm going to click around eight-ish buckets for this one. You know, a lot of setup stuff in this back half of it, but I'm really intrigued by what's going to happen moving forward. The idea of them hiring muscle. I know a lot of fans are also wanting, and again, we hear the Mandalorian music, the Din Djarin sort of theme, right? That seems to be the indication. I know a lot of fans want to see sort of like the recreation of the Death Star bridge from Empire Strikes Back. You know, they want to see Forlom and Zuckuss and Dengar and Bosk and IG-88. But you know, if we're holding to Star Wars canon, these characters, some of them have met a very interesting fate in the comic books, and so I mean, don't hold your breath on that one, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Though Bosk's showing up because we find out that Chris Anton just tore off his uncle's arm would be interesting. but well, who's to say? Who's to say? All right, that is Chapter 4, the Book of Boba Fett, The Gathering Storm. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to watch it again tonight. Cannot wait. And that's the show. That's Mandovision for today. Sorry so much about that stumble right there at the end. My goodness. You know where to find us on social media. We are at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing this show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. It means so much to me that we are in all the coverts. I want to be in every covert, in every city, in every town, from here to Tatooine. I think it'd be very, very cool if we could do that. Super, super rad. If you have the time and the inclination, 5-star reviews are insanely helpful too. In our battle against the evil of the algorithm, that is Emperor Palpatine's evil algorithm that's attempting to keep us down and silence our voices forever. So please, 5-star reviews are badass. I love them. I don't say BA on here too often, but I'm dropping it right now. Thank you for those of you who have done them already. Thank you so much once again. We got a Patreon going on. If you want to become an official Mandovision Maniac, you can do so at patreon.com/Mandovision. You can join the Maniacs and gain access to sweet bonus content like our newly released James Bond No Time to Die review episode. It was a lot of fun. I sat down with my brother Mark, and we got into sort of like the entire Daniel Craig run, basically. Obviously, we're very focused on No Time to Die, but we talked about my insane love for Casino Royale and the other elements of the Bond films, particularly in Daniel Craig's 4 film arc, 4 or 5. I've already lost track, but it's a good episode. And if you're a Mandovision Maniac at the appropriate tier, you can check out that episode too. Thank you so much to our current Patreons, the Aspen Hill Chody, the Batman Abejo, Jeff Nail, Jeff co-hosts The Ring Near, a great music podcast. Please check them out. Thanks to the Evil Circle, the evilest of all circles. The Squid Master General Brian Broussard, the New Jersey Devil Mark Wegemer, our very own Joker and Harley Quinn, Brian and Krista of Pariah Brewing Company here in San Diego, and coming soon, in days, to Baltimore, Maryland. The Beer Hop Brigadier General, Jesus Beer Hops, the Silent Assassin, he who should not be named, Syndicate Ram, the co-host of the Come On, It's So Good podcast, a movie-based podcast that I am a big fan of as well. Thank you all, you Mandovision Maniacs, and enjoy the new bonus episode out this week. We will be back for Star Wars: The Clone Wars rewatch Mondays, and then hopefully on Wednesday, but maybe Thursday next week for the next chapter, Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. All right, let's get out of here, maniacs. This podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.